June 2024 games. We are going to see a bunch of games released this month, but it's easy to forget anything's really releasing in June because we all know it's going to get overshadowed by Assassin's Creed Mirage on iOS. Let's try to find at least one other title to keep us interested throughout this. And next up, Destiny 2, The Final Shape. This is set to release on June 4th, 2024. It's the last major update to Destiny 2's current story arc, and it'll be available on PlayStation 4, 5, Xbox One, Series X and S, and PC. This expansion is marking the culmination of the Light and Darkness saga, or in layman's terms, my God, it's finally over. What's next, though? The Final Shape is set to delve into the origins and nature of the Darkness, the primary antagonist that has pursued the Traveler for eons since this story started all the way back with the original Destiny in 2014 and continued with the sequel and all the expansions. And basically, the Final Shape is wrapping up the storyline, setting the stage for the next book in a series, so to speak. There are some good additions to this, though. One of the most exciting is the Prismatic subclass, which allows Guardians to combine various elemental powers from both light and darkness. The subclass will introduce new abilities and customizations options, allowing players to create different builds by mixing all of the unique elemental effects. For instance, Warlocks will have access to Stasis Void Grenades, Titans to a Strand Arc Grenade, and Hunters to a Solar Stasis Grenade. That's going to increase the effectiveness of everybody, and it's going to matter, because also you can have the opportunity to outfit your Guardians with exotic class items, such as Hunter's Cloaks, Titan's Marks, and Warlock's Bonds, which, for the first time ever, will feature exotic level perks. These perks are not fixed. They're actually randomized, incorporating 2 attributes from existing exotic class items, potentially even those from different classes. Destiny players will now have new enemies, the Dread faction, and it's probably what makes a lot of people sit up and take notice of the entire expansion itself. In addition to the Tormentor introduced in Lightfall and the previously revealed Subjugators, the Dread also has Grim, Husk, Attendant, and Weaver units. The Grim are highly mobile, they're flying enemies, and they can actually slow or suppress a Guardian's abilities if they get too close to them. The Husk is an acrobatic bruiser. They pose a different threat by sending an enemy towards the Guardians, which can only be neutralized by precise hitting on weak spots. The Attendant and the Weaver, wielding Stasis and Strand respectively, have the power to instantly change the flow of any encounter. The abilities force Guardians to sort of maintain a different kind of strategic positioning on the battlefield and move around and understand the ranges and the abilities of everybody combined. To take them all on, though, you're going to need weapons, and finally, Bungie has decided to take a step towards rewarding ages of hard work from gamers by unsunsetting older weapons, by removing the power limits to all the older gear. Now, this means that players can upgrade any old weapons to the current power standards, making them usable in the new expansion as well as just anywhere in the main game. Finally, with new opportunities to add things like original traits and build crafting perks. With new exotics also comes general weapon changes. The biggest for many players may be the new Fire Team Power. This brings all players within 5 levels of the highest player in any group they're in. To a lot of people, new and old alike, that is going to end up being one of the game changers in this. And it's actually exciting because Destiny's had so many damned up and downs it could have just been called Doom, but these all sound like good changes. While the other changes to the economy, though, seem to be getting more attention in possibly negative ways. We'll just have to see how that comes out. The expansion looks to be righting at least some of the issues the game has had and seeing creep in over its lifespan. And proof's in the pudding, baby. We're going to have to see how it ends up paying off as we actually play it, again on June 4th. Next up is a little bit different. It's the Xbox event. So June 9th is when this happens. We're going to see another Xbox event here, something that all the companies are doing more of, which is their own events to focus solely on themselves. I like the form factor, especially if it's mostly just games and not talking heads riding bikes down hallways. We're also going to see right after the Xbox event a Call of Duty reveal, showing us what appears to be the new Call of Duty in the Gulf War by Treyarch. I'm excited for that. But the Xbox event itself is rumored to show a number of titles already known as well as some unannounced world premieres and confirmation that many of these are coming to Game Pass. Xbox will likely show more Bethesda DLC for Starfield as well as whatever they're percolating in the boiling pot of anarchy known as Microsoft Xbox division. Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024, Avowed, and Indiana Jones are also supposedly scheduled to show up here. So June 9th, going to be a very interesting time to see where Microsoft is going, because to a lot of fans, I think they think they're just going away. But what's not going away is early access, and that's where Songs of Silence comes in on PC on the 4th of June. This is a time when every gamer seems to go, man, early access, and it's hard to be interested or even track every single title that does this. However, sometimes one does jump up and make you pay attention. Song of Silence has done that for me. This comes out on the 4th, early access by Chimera Entertainment. Song of Silence is a strategy game. It's set in a fantasy world that's threatened by this all-encompassing, all-devouring power known as the Silence. The game features a mix of turn-based kingdom management, but also a little bit of auto battler in there, and the hero development itself. This is all contrasted by an overarching game screen that you take your kingdom control with these RTS battles that you go into. Now, the battles themselves, while auto battles, have you supporting them using these combat cards and spells that you have connected to about 100 available units. You recruit armies from all of these units, but like an auto battler, they go out and it's a short and sweet battle. It lasts just a couple minutes. You are consistently using your cards and resources to help the armies on the screen, and that's across single player and randomized multiplayer maps. The resources themselves are the cards that represent the powers and abilities from the units that you've recruited. It also feels a little bit like Magic the Gathering on speed. I like the idea of it, especially when you see that some of these units can have powers or abilities connected to the locations that you go to. With the composer from Final Fantasy Tactics, Final Fantasy VII, and Valkyria Chronicles, the music is pretty much sure to be on point and damned wicked as well. This is on June 4th, and I got to admit, even for an early access game, it looks pretty damned phenomenal. Next up, maybe a little less phenomenal looking, but certainly something that is enticing to check out, at least for me as a fan of games in the genre, and that's Life by You. It's early access as well, though, unfortunately, on the 4th of June. Now, Sims competitors, they're a hard thing to actually come by, which sometimes can feel weird, as even Sims 4 really flawed series updates have done excellent on their own, but we haven't seen a lot of companies jump in. But Paradox, master of DLCs, is launching Life by You on early access on the PC. You can almost instantly see that they're going for something different here. It's offering a much more in-depth experience across all of the facets of the gameplay, where you're in total control of all the humans that you create, the towns that you build, and of course, whatever stories that come up organically in it. And they've stated very clearly they have a massive suite of creator tools for people to mod the hell out of it. It also seems like a couple shots at The Sims here, which makes sense. They talk about living life with no loading screens, striking up real language conversations, driving or biking around the town and unlocking new quests. If you can drive around in third-person mode, that honestly might feel a little bit like a game trying to do absolutely everything, and so any one part may fail. Also, because this is an early access title, expect some of this to fall out of favor or to be added to. We just don't know how early access is going to change this game. Of course, it also has all the trappings of the sim games we've seen before, full career paths and building. Could it be a Second Life without the 3 a.m. creepsters hanging around the clubs? Yes, it could. It could also be something that just feels disjointed. But what I've seen of it looks interesting. What Life by You may have is a bit of everything and a solid shot at hitting in many places where Sims 4 didn't. But there's two big caveats to this one that I'm watching out for, despite me saying this is a game to look for in the month. Firstly, Paradox makes EA look like a damned preschooler in an NBA game when it comes to DLCs. It is insane, and I'm just assuming we're going to see that here. Also, the game's early access has been delayed 2 other times. So at the time of this recording, hey, we may think it's coming, but it makes me tentative over performance, optimizations, content, and otherwise, even beyond the typical thanks for being an alpha tester that early access usually provides. I like a lot of what they're going for, but it also, strangely enough, has a lot going against it. We'll just have to see. But a game where everything's going against you, Elden Ring Shadow of the Erd Tree, DLC. It's on everything but the Switch. I'm going to try to keep a lot of the spoilers out of here. Basically, you're going to follow the story of Mikla and see exactly what's past the blood cocoon. That's pretty much as I can say there. The DLC's been confirmed to be a fresh new area. There's field areas, legacy dungeons, and other dungeons of different scale. The devs have also said that it's around the same size as Limgrave, overlapped, and they plan to experiment with something a little bit more in between the main areas so that exploration feels a little bit more seamless. It's going to have 10 new bosses, 8 entire new weapons categories, a huge land and scope and scale, and deep diving into the life and story of Mikla. I actually think this is probably one of the more interesting bits of lore in Elden Ring, so I'm excited to jump in. Remember, this is in the middle section of the game. Well, maybe not the middle, but a little bit farther than the starting, so be aware that you'll have to have played a bit before you unlock this. It's not a DLC that starts out right when you jump into the game. Also, be well aware that they have stated very clearly that this DLC is there to challenge even people who have played the game a bunch. They are making some adjustments to the title, and of course, we'll probably expect to see a patch or two to improve it once it comes out. For all intents and purposes, it appears to be the only DLC that's coming for this game, which also makes sense because apparently it's pretty damned massive, and they've added a ton to it. Not much more to say. Shadow of the Erd Tree for Elden Ring again comes out on the 21st. I can't see anybody who's enjoyed the original game not wanting to jump in, except for having to return and get your butt kicked for a while till you relearn all the systems. Next up, Still Wakes the Deep. This is on PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X and S, and PC. No Switch for this, and this is on June 18th. This is from Chinese Room as well, the developers who scored the main developer job for the new Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2, which, who knows, may never come out, after the original dev was taken off. Their next title, Still Wakes the Deep, is a story of a 1975 oil rig electrician, Kaz McCleary. So this is after a destructive event is causing this oil rig to start to collapse around his ears, and some kind of mysterious creature has got in and is threatening him. It's a bit stealth game, it's a bit environmental storytelling, and a bit walking sim. Parts of it may remind you of Dear Esther or Everybody's Gone to the Rapture, but that's because those guys made the damn things, and they made this one. There's also a bit of Vanishing of Ethan Carter rubbed in here. There's a mix of puzzles, creepy detective work, and once again, you against the world, or in this case, it's you escaping your own little crumbling one to get out alive. This is also composed by Jason Graves from Tomb Raider 2013, The Order 1886, and the recent No Rest for the Wicked that's out in early access. Again, coming on June 18th, it's a single-player only survival horror game that's also a walking sim and a puzzler for PlayStation, Windows, and Xbox. A game that couldn't be more opposite of that comes out on June 25th, and that's Super Monkey Ball Banana Rumble for the Switch. This has 1 to 16 players. It's published by Sega, and again comes out on the 25th. It's similar to the previous games. Banana Rumble is going to consist of you basically controlling one playable character, going around a stage inside of a giant plastic ball and reaching the goal under a time limit. You have new moves, new locations, 4-player local multiplayer, and 16-player online with some kind of mini games. While Monkey Ball may not have the biggest following, it's still got a passionate one, and on the 25th, we're going to be able to see how all this comes together. And I've always felt that Super Monkey Ball is one of those titles that's a little bit slept on as just a pure, engaging, fun kind of game. An arcade-style title that takes a lot of the trappings of newness and thrusts them in there and tries to figure out ways to make it work. And I think many times it actually does. This comes out soon. You'll be able to check it out. I'm actually excited for it, though I don't know if I'm going to dust off my Switch because, in fact, I don't even know where that thing is. Let's talk about a couple just honorable mentions. Luigis Mansion 2 HD, that's a remake that comes on the Switch on June 27th. If you like those kind of games, you can play one that hasn't been out in a while. It's remade. I got to admit, I saw some of the videos for this compared to the original. Not a huge amount improved for a game like this. It definitely seems to be barely an upscale. But hey, if you're a fan of these kind of games, there you go. Another one that's an honorable mention is Five Nights at Freddy's Help Wanted 2. The reason why this is an honorable mention is because I think a lot of people forgot they had a PlayStation VR 2 somewhere in their house. But on June 20th, if you want to jump into Five Nights, you can do that. Five Nights at Freddy's Help Wanted 2 actually scored insanely well, or at least very good for a Quest game. Highly rated. It allows for you to jump into this VR experience, which, remember, is a bit of a horror game. As a brand new Fazbear employee, you have to prove yourself and what it takes to excel by fighting off the evil creatures that are in it and doing all kinds of crazy shit. It looks good graphically, and I think the PSVR 2 has some chops when it comes to the visuals. So I'm sort of excited, but I don't know if I'm excited enough to find my PSVR 2, which I think is next to my Portal and next to my Switch. All joking aside, I may need to unearth it because SMITE Vengeance is also coming out on the 21st, and that's for PC, Switch, PS4, PS5, and Xbox. This is a big change for Atlas. They've done a really good job with this. They've actually added a full other story to this title that is going to allow you to basically play the first game and its story as well as this brand new story, more accessible gameplay, totally changed or at least revamped battle systems and demon experiences. I thought this was interesting because I'm not 100% sure what the actual fan base who listened to this top 10 is going to be, but I like to cover all of the games that sort of interest me, and this one did. I like to see titles that say, you know what, We're going to throw something together that's old as new, new as old, but we're going to add to it. Atlas seems to have done that. And this means high school students and demons and wastelands in Tokyo and dungeon crawling, but with some excellent improvements. Something that the original, a lot of people sort of complained about. Anyway, that's it for me. I hope you guys like these videos. Give it a thumbs up if you dig it, thumbs down if you don't. Peace out. Watch the channel for more reviews.